to everyone. Today is Sunday, November the 8th, 2020. On behalf of ISKCON Scarborough, I would like to welcome each one of you to 8th successive month of virtual class. Actually, today is the 34th week. We have had respected ISKCON Maharajas and ISKCON Brahmacharis give classes for the last 33 weeks. Today, we are honored to welcome back His Grace Dravida Prabhu to give another class in the last few months. And for ISKCON Scarborough devotees, Prabhu has been giving classes. Previous virtual classes in the last few months by esteemed Maharaja and Brahmacharis are His Holiness Sundara Chaitanya Swami from Mauritius, Dravida Das Prabhu from San Diego, many classes by His Grace Keshavananda Das from Punjab, India, multiple classes by His Grace Rohini Priya Das from Chaupati, India, and His Grace Chaitanya Charan Das from India, and many classes by His Holiness Bhakti Swami. Some classes given by Dravid Prabhu are 2 classes on the 6 limbs of surrender, and Sri Krishna Kathastaka, Lord Kapila Dev's Sadhu Sangastaka, special class he gave on May 24th. So another class. So Prabhu is very generous to give classes, and today we are honored to welcome back His Grace Dravida Das Prabhu to give class on the topic Lord Rsabhadev's teachings to his sons from Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.4 to 6. Give me one more minute. The computer, I'm just admitting other people too. Very nice. All our classes are recorded and posted on the YouTube. Please search ISKCON Scarborough and you will find all the recordings we have. And also we post on SoundCloud, Facebook, and our websites. So, a few things about Dravida Das Prabhu are he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada and joined ISKCON in 1973, and he served as an editor for the Bhakti Vedanta Book Trust for over 45 years. So you can imagine hearing from Prabhu is like we are hearing from the archives and everything coming from there. From 1983 to 1989, he was the part of the team that completed Srila Prabhupada's English translation of Srimad Bhagavatam, 18,000 verses. He is the part of the team that produces Srila Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja book every year. In addition to his editing work, he teaches Bhakti Yoga classes at ISKCON San Diego Temple and other centers in North America. His devotion and expertise in chanting from a marvelous combination. He has been Brahmachari throughout his devotional career. And one more thing, that at the end, like last 10 minutes, I will ask the questions on your behalf. If you submit the question through chat, or you can send question through WhatsApp. It's over to you, Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Amal. Hare Krishna. And for the assembled devotees, I'd like to offer my obeisances. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu behevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So today, as Amal Prabhu pointed out, we're going to be speaking on a section of Lord Rsabhadev's teachings to his sons and others. And I'm also, we should also say something about this special day today. Today is the appearance day of Sri Radhakund, and it's also Bahulashtami. So a little bit about Bahulashtami. Bahula was a cow in Vrindavan, very saintly cow. And on this day, thousands of years ago, he was captured by a tiger. And the tiger was going to make him lunch. Make lunch of him. And the cow pleaded with this tiger. And after all, the tiger was also a resident of Vrindavan, so he had some devotional sentiments. And the cow pleaded that he would like to go and feed her. She would like to go and feed her calf first and say goodbye before coming back. And so the tiger trusted the cow, knew the cow to be very Brahminical and telling of truth, very honest. So he let the cow go. And the cow went back to the calf and, gave her milk and bid her goodbye. And there was also a Brahmin present at the time. And when they heard the whole story, both the calf and the Brahmin were very touched. And they decided that they're going to go as well to the tiger. And all three of them would offer themselves up as lunch for the tiger. So they returned to the tiger, and Krishna, being eternally present there in Vrindavan and everywhere, he saw the wonderful qualities of this special cow, and he decided to come and intervene in this pastime. And so he had his chakra swinging, twirling on his finger, and he asked the tiger to release the cow from his commitment to offer himself up to the tiger. The tiger was very excited to see Krishna personally like that, and he agreed to release the tiger. And Krishna awarded him a boon, and the boon was that in a future birth, and that tiger, the soul in the tiger, would be one of Krishna's consorts and wives. And so since it all happened where Radhakund manifests, this is said to be a very sacred pastime, and it's always in conjunction with the appearance of Radhakund on this day. And so there's this forest, Bahulavan, which is said to be the most sacred forest, or not one of the most in all of Vrindavan, because it's right there next to Radhakund. So that's the story of Bahula, the great cow, and Bahulashtami. This is the day that celebrates that wonderful pastime. Now, also, this is the description of the appearance of Radhakund is told very wonderfully by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, quoting from the Padma Purana. It's present in the BBT edition of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and it is at 10, if you're interested, 10:36:16. And this has to do with the killing of Arashtashra. You may remember Arashtashra, the big bull demon. He threatened all of Vrindavan, and he came as a huge bull, and thundering, and his tail was so tall that it was touching the clouds. And of course, Krishna annihilated that bull demon. Now, after that was right on where the Radhakund would manifest. So after that, Krishna approached Radharani, and Rani said, I don't want to touch you anymore, because you're contaminated with sinful reactions from killing this bull, which is, after all, a male cow. You killed a sacred bull. And so you have to perform penance and go into all the holy places and bathe and get rid of your sinful reactions. So Krishna said, I don't need to go to all the holy places. I'll just bring them here. So he dug his heel into the soft mud there, and a big depression was created. And all of the holy rivers, one after another, the Tamrapani, the Godavari, the Ganges, many others, they came there and filled that lake, and that became what we now know as Shyamakund. So Krishna said, Krishna bathed there, and he said, now I'm pure, I can touch you. He says, no, that you still haven't atoned for the sin of this killing this bull. But Radharani decided that I'm going to make a lake even greater than yours. So she told her gopis to begin digging. So in a matter of an hour, they excavated a lake, what is now the place where Radhakund is. but there was no water in it. So Krishna was very touched by the whole thing, and he said, "Oh, let the rivers come in, the sacred rivers that have filled my lake and my pond into yours." He said, "No, that water is all now filled with all your sinful reactions." So Krishna, the personification of the leader of all of those sacred rivers, appeared with folded hands and begged Srimati Radharani to please allow us to fill your lake. And so Radharani glanced at Krishna, sidelong glance, and agreed. And all of those rivers then filled Radhakund. They broke through that barrier. Those of you who have been to Vrindavan, you know the two lakes are side by side. There's a wall in between. So that at that point, they filled up the other lakes, so that Radhakund and Shamakund. So then Radharani said, "I'm going to come and bathe in your lake, every day to get purified." And Krishna said, "Oh, your lake is as dear to me as you are, and so we'll perform all our most intimate pastimes here." And so that was, and then they had a rasa dance on the bank. This last verse, there's about 10 or 12 verses here describing it. More than that, there's like 20. So at the end it said, that night, Lord Krishna initiated a rasa dance at Radhakund, generating a torrent of the greatest mood of splendorous pleasure. Sri Krishna resembled a cloud, and Radharani a brilliant flash of lightning, filling the sky with abundant beauty. In this way, their divine glories permeated the expanses of the three worlds. So that's the appearance of Radhakund. This is the anniversary. We can remember that. And of course, the months of Kartik, doubly auspicious. So now I'd like to turn to verses of the day, which are the Rsabhadev's teachings in the fifth canto, chapter 5, text 4 through 6. Srila Prabhupada quoted these quite often, and he quotes these three, which provide a unified lesson in and of themselves in a purport in the Bhagavad Gita. So I'm going to share my screen now, and I'd like to, if you can, I may not be able to hear you, but I'll chant them line by line for the first verse, and then we have like a regular Bhagavatam class here. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, on this 8th day of November, appearance of Radhakund, to the devotees in Scarborough. I'm sitting in San Diego. We're reading from Srila Prabhupada's Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Lord Rsabhadeva's teaching to his sons, beginning in text number 4. Nunam pramaptak kurate vikarma yadindriya pritaya apranoti nasadu manyeyata atmanoyam asannapi kleshada asadeha. So I'll leave it to you to investigate the word-by-word meanings, but I'll read the translation and the purport. I don't know how to get free of this. Okay, maybe that will do it. Okay. So, Lord Rsabhadeva says to his sons and many others gathered there, when a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. I'll read the short purport. Begging, borrowing, and stealing to live for sense gratification is condemned in this verse because such consciousness leads one to a dark, hellish condition. The four sinful activities are illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. These are the means by which one gets another material body that is full of miseries. In the Vedas, it is said, asango yayam purushaha. The living entity is not really connected with this material world, but due to his tendency to enjoy the material senses, he is put into the material condition. One should perfect his life by associating with devotees. He should not become further implicated in the material body. Okay. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So here, Rsabhadeva, in his usual, he's not mincing any words here. He's speaking very frankly to his sons. He began his instruction by Nayam Deho Dehabajan Loke Kashtan Kamanarate Vidbujange. He said it's not proper that someone who has been awarded a human body spoil his life by working hard for sense gratification on the level of the stool-eating hogs. And he says human life is meant for austerity, transcendental, divine austerity, so one can purify one's existence and then come to the point of enjoying transcendental happiness, Brahma Saukyam. So here, a few verses later, he's also speaking very strongly. And he's saying that those who are simply after Indriya Priti, which exactly translates as sense gratification, and who are always striving for such things, and whose whole goal of life is that, they're sure to perform vikarma. Now, vikarma, as Prabhupada says, sinful activities forbidden in the scriptures. So in the fourth chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we said we should try to understand the distinction between karma, vikarma, and akarma. Now, karma in this context, when they're contrasted with akarma and vikarma, means activities that are within the Vedic paradigm, within the varnashram system. They may be mostly fruitive, but you're observing the karma kanda section of the Vedas, you're performing sacrifices and so forth like that. Akarma is what we strive for, which is transcendental activity that has no fruit, that has no result, no good or bad reaction. Because even if you get a good reaction, suppose you're very charitable and you do material charity in different ways, you'll have to come back again to take a material body in order to get the good reaction to that. So that doesn't give you any progress on your path back to Godhead. But akarma is action performed as devotional service to Krishna, for intending to please him and giving the fruit to him. And that produces no reaction, good or bad, and awakens, as we progress in devotional service, pure love for Krishna, which is the ultimate goal of life. And the destination of such a soul is to the spiritual world, back to Godhead, which is what we're striving for. So here, Lord Rsabhadeva is giving a very stark description of ordinary sinful activity by complete materialists. So he says his opinion is it's not very good, nasadu manye, because by this activity, one is sure to get another material body, deha, which is temporary and which brings all kinds of miseries, kleshada. So this is his first statement here. Now, in the next verse, he continues this description, and here giving us a definition of, or first in the Srila Prabhupada's little purport. So Prabhupada, this is, this kind of activity, simply engaging in sense gratification, which we're surrounded with. This whole society that we live in, it doesn't matter whether you're in Canada or the United States or any other country, basically. The basic understanding of the nature of life as eternal, as spirit rather than matter, that the goal of that life, the existence of God, our relation with God, what is this world, all of the principles of the bhakti that we learn from the Shastra, from our teachers, people are completely ignorant of that. And so they're living basically like animals. Some may be on a little more refined, different, more toward the mode of goodness, others toward the mode of ignorance. But it's all leading toward more suffering, and in this age, toward degradation and hellish, as Prabhupada describes a hellish condition, dark hellish condition. So Prabhupada makes the point, this very wonderful little phrase from the Vedas, asango hyayam purusha. Here the purusha means the living entity embodied in the material body, we really have no association with that body. We're not connected to it. It's all simply based on illusion. We're given this body because we want to be separate from Krishna, but we have no intrinsic relation with it. It's all simply a Maya's trick. So understanding that we can use the body to purify our consciousness, use the senses we've been given, the eyes, the ears and nose, the touch, the voice, all the active senses as well, to connect to Krishna, purify the consciousness, and jettison the material body entirely, not come back again. So as Prabhupada said, we're not really connected to the material world, but due to our tendency to enjoy material senses, we're put into the material condition. Okay. So now Prabhupada says the important thing is one should perfect his life by associating with devotees. So that's what this whole society is about, to give us a chance to associate, to share Krishna consciousness, to hear from teachers, so that we can progress on the path back to Godhead. So now the next verse is very significant, and I'll chant. Maybe you can chant, those who can see this and are able to repeat. Padabhavastavadabodha jato yavan jigyasata atma tattvam yavat kriyastavadidam manovai karmatmakam hina sharira bandha. As long as one does not inquire about the spiritual values of life, one is defeated and subjected to miseries arising from ignorance. Be it sinful or pious, karma has its resultant actions. If a person is engaged in any kind of karma, his mind is called karmatmaka, colored with fruit of activity. As long as the mind is impure, consciousness is unclear, and as long as one is absorbed in fruit of activity, he has to accept the material body. So let's explore this purport. Generally, people think that one should act very piously in order to be relieved from misery, but this is not a fact. Even though one engages in pious activity and speculation, he is nonetheless defeated. His only aim should be emancipation from the clutches of Maya and all material activities. Speculative knowledge and pious activity do not solve the problems of material life. One should be inquisitive to understand his spiritual position. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita 4:37, Yataidangsi samidognir bhasmasat kuruterjuna jnanagni sarvakarmani bhasmasat kurute tata. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. Unless one understands the self and its activities, one has to be considered in material bondage. In Srimad Bhagavatam 10:232, it is also said, a person who doesn't have knowledge of devotional service may think himself liberated, but actually he's not. Such people may approach the impersonal Brahman effulgence, but they fall down again into material enjoyment because they have no knowledge of devotional service. As long as one is interested in karma and jnana, he continues enduring the miseries of material life, birth, old age, disease, and death. Karmis certainly take on one body after another. As far as jnanis are concerned, unless they are promoted to the topmost understanding, they must return to the material world. As explained in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19, Bahonam janmanamante jnanavan mam papadyate. The point is to know Krishna, Vasudeva, as everything and surrender unto him. Karmis do not know this, but a devotee who is 100% engaged in the devotional service of the Lord knows fully what is karma and jnana. Therefore, a pure devotee is no longer interested in karma or jnana. Anyabhilashita shunyam jnana karma janavatam. The real bhakta is untouched by any tinge of karma and jnana. His only purpose in life is to serve the Lord. And I don't think I did this. Om jnana tamarandasya jnanandjana salakaya chakshu unmidatam mena tasmai shri gurave namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Shri Parampara with disciplic succession. So going back to the verse, Uh, this is a very important verse. In Sanskrit, there's these two words, yavat, tavat. And yavat means as long as, and tavat means that long. And usually it's oftentimes it's negative. As long as you don't do this, you won't get that. So here it says, parabhavas tavat abodha jato. Parabhavas means defeat and misery, as Prabhupada says here. In other words, birth and death, birth, old age, disease, and death, again and again and again. This is defeat for the soul. Defeat means we're still in jail. We haven't become purified. We haven't gone back to Godhead. So that long you will, tavat, that long, so long, you will experience defeat. So then he analyzes abodha jato. Abodha jato. What does that mean? Produced from ignorance. So defeat means acting materially out of ignorance and sinfully out of ignorance, which I know the material sinful activity keeps us bound to a material body. So since it's born of ignorance, the cure is knowledge, transcendental knowledge. So he says, Yavan jigyasata atma tattvam. As long as you do not inquire, jigyasa. This is the famous word from the beginning of the Vedanta Sutta. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. This is why Bhagavatam is the perfect commentary on Vedanta Sutra written by the same author. So the idea is, as long as we do not inquire, we're not interested in Atma Tattva, the truth of the self, the truth of God, the relationship, all the things that were taught in Srila Prabhupada's books, then we'll be immersed in ignorance, abodha, which will give birth to our birth and death, parabhavas, our defeat. Then again, he has another pair, yavat tavat, yavat kriyas, because in that ignorance, we will act fruitively, right? Fruitive activities, kriyas. As long as we're continuing to do fruitive activities, which is based on ignorance, that long, the mind will remain karmatmakam, saturated with material desires and material aspirations and thoughts, you know. And that includes all kinds of fears and anxieties, which is the negative side of material desire. And that karmatmaka mind, don't forget the mind is the real vehicle of transmigration. The subtle body does not perish when the gross body dies. That subtle body filled with all kinds of desires and material modes of nature is the template upon which our next material body grows. So yena, by which sharira bandha, we stay bound up to a material body. So this is a great analysis of the process of bondage in this material world. So how do we get free of that? Clearly, the first step is inquiring into the science of the self from the proper source. And this is what Prabhupada came to give us. He came to give us, first of all, himself and his books. He didn't come until he had that first canto in hand, which he produced a great effort in India in the early 60s, all alone. And he had that, and of course his vast knowledge and realization that being a pure devotee, and came and gave us that opportunity to hear from the pure source, the absolute truth, starting with Krishna, coming all the way down through Brahma and Narada and Vyasa and everyone else. And so that the more that we are inquisitive and we systematically study and receive this knowledge and try to put it into practice in our own lives, the more we'll feel the bonds of material life loosening, and we won't have to keep experiencing defeat and misery in our lives. So then he gives the third verse, in which he ends with a very hopeful note. So evam. So now evam means thus, so therefore, manak evam manak karma vasham prayunkte avidyatman jupadiyamani priti nayavan mahivasudevi namuchati dehi yogena tavat. So here we are with one more pair of yavat tavat at the end of this little lesson here. So Rsabhadeva says thus, right? When the living entity is covered by the mode of ignorance, he does not understand the individual living being and the supreme living being, and his mind is subjected by fruitive activity. Therefore, Until one has love for Lord Vasudeva, who is none other than myself, he is certainly not delivered from having to accept a material body again and again. Purport. When the mind is polluted by fruitive activity, the living entity wants to be elevated from one material position to another. Generally, everyone is involved in working hard day and night to improve his economic condition. Even when one understands the Vedic rituals, he becomes interested in promotion to heavenly planets, not knowing that one's real interest lies in returning home back to Godhead. By acting on the platform of fruitive activity, one wanders throughout the universe in different species and forms. Unless he comes in contact with the devotee of the Lord, a guru, he does not become attached to the service of Lord Vasudeva. Knowledge of Vasudeva requires many births to understand, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudurlabhaha. After struggling for existence, of course, the first part of that verse is Bahonam Janmanamam Te, means after many, many births, one who is full of knowledge surrenders unto me. After struggling for existence for many births, one may take shelter at the lotus feet of Vasudeva Krishna. When this happens, one actually becomes wise and surrenders unto him. This is the only way to stop the repetition of birth and death. This is confirmed in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Mandya 19:151, in the instructions given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Srila Rupa Goswami at the Shashwamedha Ghat. Brahmanda Brahmadekon Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Pasare Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. The living entity wanders throughout different planets in different forms and bodies. But if by chance he comes in contact with a bona fide spiritual master, by the grace of the spiritual master, he receives Lord Krishna's shelter and his devotional life begins. So this is the solution to the problem. Rsabhadeva begins, thus, when the mind, karma visham, means subjugated by fruitive activities. This karma visham means the impetus for action is entirely in this realm of fruitive activity. That's where the mind is filled with those ideas. And he actually acts on the basis of this fruitive desires. The living entity remains covered, upadiyamani, by avidya or ignorance, which, as we learned before in the previous verses, is the very root of our defeat or birth and imprisonment in the cycle of birth and death. So then he says something very wonderful. Pritir niyavan maya vasudevi namuchate dehi yogena tava. As long as one does not have love for me, Vasudeva, Rsabhadeva is an incarnation of Krishna, one will not be liberated from the body, the material body, which is what we try. It's the preliminary motive of all sincere transcendentalists is to become free from the bodily conception and free from the bodily imprisonment, physical body. So this line is not often quoted, but it's very important also for understanding and preaching to, if you will, the impersonalists who try to separate liberation from bhakti. Prabhupada refers to that verse in the 10th canto, and I think in the previous purport. That the demigods are praying to Krishna in the womb. He's still in Devaki's womb. They've come secretly to the dungeon of Kamsa, and they're praying to Krishna. And this is the most quoted one, Prabhupada quote all the time. Besides your devotees, Anya, there are others, O lotus-eyed Lord, who are averse to serving your lotus feet, vimuktamaninas. And they consider themselves liberated because by great effort, they've controlled the senses and fixed the mind on Brahman and risen to the Brahman platform, Brahmabhuta platform. Ashtabhavat avishuddha buddhiya, their intelligence is impure. Aruha kritrina param padam. Param padam here means Brahma nirvana, means the impersonal Brahman. Patantyadho, but they fall down again because they're averse to serving your lotus feet. So there's no question of liberation without love for Krishna. So the whole mindset that we have in the material sphere, which, as he described in previous verses, is focused on giving pleasure to the senses and avoiding pain. There's always that duality, because wherever there's a sense gratification, there will always be suffering. Bhoga, dukkha yonaya evate. Krishna certifies that very pleasure you experience, gross or subtle sense pleasure, is the source of your misery. So, but we're pleasure-seeking beings, because this is our. I'm going to stop sharing and return so you can see. We're pleasure-seeking beings because we're part and parcel of Krishna. Anandamaya Vyasat. So, but we're looking for that original pleasure that we no longer have in the spiritual world. We're looking for it here in the material world, but it's impossible. It's impossible to find, because every pleasure here has a beginning and an end. The intelligent don't take their pleasure in the senses, because that pleasure is a very pale reflection of the real Ananda to be enjoyed at by serving Krishna's lotus feet. But we don't know that. That ignorance that we have keeps us bound to this world and keeps us acting sinfully. So the whole lesson is like this. First of all, we have to be awake to the actual situation we're in, which is that we're out of our element. Just like Prabhupada says, a fish, you take a fish out of the water, you can never be happy with any amount of emoluments. You want from a garland, you want from a nice prasadam. All he wants is to go back in the water, and that because he's completely out of his element. So we are out of our element. We're spiritual beings. We belong in the spiritual world with Krishna serving and love. And we, out of our envy, somehow or other, we desire to compete with Krishna rather than serve Krishna. And so we're given this place in this illusory material world where we have one identity after another. Most of those identities are in lower species, which we can't even understand this science. But in the human form, if we also use this form also to try to get material sense gratification, it's a tragic waste. Rather, we should find a proper source of knowledge and inquire about the Atma Tattva. Now, we don't know that. So therefore, the great devotees, they're so merciful. They come out and they canvass. Prabhupada had to come all the way to New York, all right, and walk up and down the street and go from here to the Bowery and everywhere and struggle for 8-9 months before he found somebody ready to listen, who were, in their own confused way, inquiring into Atma Tattva, were curious enough to hear him. And as soon as they were ready to hear him and chant Hare Krishna, the heart began to get purified, and they had experience. They experienced the transcendental pleasure of chanting, and they became very fascinated and interested in the philosophy. And that's how the movement has grown. So each of us has to take that step and inquire and make this knowledge integral to our very lives. That's how we can actually make progress toward escaping the bonds of birth and death. So the wonderful little lesson here from Rsabhadeva, it's only 3 verses, but there's a world of wisdom in these verses. Just to review, he said, Nunam pramatta kurute becoming. This madness, not just madness, but extreme madness. Pramatta kurute vikarma yadindriya pritayapana. Those who are performing sinful activities just for the sake of sense gratification. The little flickering pleasures are going to produce tremendous amount of suffering. The proportion is completely, skewed toward the suffering side. And once we realize that, if we're intelligent, we say, well, how can I get out of this, imprisonment? Because our mind is filled with all of these ideas. It's the karmatmaka. So how can we purify the mind and not get trapped again in the sense gratification puzzle? So that comes from hearing from the right source and being determined to restrain from sinful activities and sense gratification and perform purifying activities, centering on chanting the holy name. By doing that, the mind becomes purified, depending on our intensity, our sincerity, and our eagerness to really get out of this world and experience the higher levels of bhakti. I always like to point out there's two main impetuses. For every activity, there's a motive. So many of our motives are coming right from the body. Oh, I'm hungry now, I'm tired now, I have to have sex, whatever, there's plenty of motivation coming from the material body. But we know from day one that those impetuses have to be controlled, and that we have to turn our attention toward cultivating other impetuses. And the first one really comes from meeting a advanced devotee, a pure devotee, who we can relate to and hear from. Am I going over time? Okay.
No, Prabhu, you're okay. You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, someone needs to put on mute because I'm hearing.
Yeah, I'm doing that.
Sorry. We come in contact with a devotee and gives us a different perspective on who we are and what our aspirations should be. And if we're willing to inquire and absorb and act on the knowledge that we receive, then we come into the circle of devotees, and Krishna is helping us from within the heart and from outside through the Shastra and the other devotees. So it's a question of sincerity, and based on this willingness to inquire. Prarabhavastavada bodha jata yavana jigyasa atato brahma jigyasa. And you see our books are filled with this. I'm reading through the Chaitanya Charitamrita again, and so much of that, the Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami, Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Prakashananda Saraswati, when they meet Lord Chaitanya and he explains to them, and their lives are totally transformed. And the same Lord Chaitanya is there for us. The same Lord Krishna, Srila Prabhupada is there in his words. And we have this wonderful opportunity to also take advantage of that mercy that comes in the form of knowledge, instruction, and compassion, really, and love. So by taking advantage of that, so these verses are very significant. Rsabhadeva is giving the verdict right at the beginning there. If you act simply on the basis of the senses, you will suffer a hellish punishment. As long as you don't inquire into the self, the God, this world, who am I, what the relationships are, the Sambandha Gyan, and how can the process of devotional service, then you remain imprisoned. So, because your mind, the mind is as he reminds us, is the vehicle, is the mechanism by which we transmigrate. Your consciousness really is your destiny. And so if we fail to purify the mind of this impetus for material activity, then we must act materially. One way, we're going to act either materially or spiritually. So to get onto the spiritual side, that's a job, that's austerity, that's going to be a struggle, because we're so conditioned, so habituated to acting simply selfishly or on the basis of sense gratification. So we've been given that process. So then he gives a solution to get out of this ignorance. We cultivate priti for Vasudeva. That's what bhakti is all about. Bhakti includes a liberation. This is one message we learn, and that is that bhakti, even the desire for liberation, is also an impurity. Ultimately, that's what we learn from Lord Chaitanya. Nadanam zananda sundarim kavitam vajagadishikame mama janmani janmanishune bhavata bhaktini. He says birth after birth. That's when he's not asking for any liberation, what to speak of wealth, followers, women, anything like that. He simply wants unmotivated devotional service. So we should learn these verses and try to enter into the mood of them, and see that bhakti, pure love for Krishna, includes every other possible benefit. The mukti is included in there. But in our neophyte stage, at the beginning, the desire to get out of the bonds of birth and death is very important, to bring us into questioning, who am I, my spirit or my matter, and is there a God, and what the relationship is. So there's the attraction of Krishna, ultimately take us right back to Godhead, right? That's what we're looking for, is the love and increasing our attraction to Krishna more and more. But in our conditioned state, oftentimes that taste is not there. But we can easily understand that this material world is a miserable place. And with a little preliminary knowledge, knowing that we're eternal, that we're going to take birth again, and that if we don't do anything, we'll just go around and around and around. And if we just act with karma, we'll lose the human form of life. So all of these things give us impetus. Yes, I want to get free of all of this birth and death, old age, disease. So the impetus for liberation is good to keep us serious about the path, you know. But ultimately, we have to graduate to that point of just being attracted more and more to Krishna, and then liberation will come on its own. Okay, it's 8:45, and my here over here, 11:45 where you are. Do we have any questions, Amal, or any discussion?
I got some messages thanking you for wonderful class.
Hare Krishna.
That's good. And people are saying namaste or pranam to you. And everyone is very happy to see you
Okay.
again giving classes for ISKCON Scarborough. One question I got is that cycle of birth and death, uh, that means liberation, am I right? So, liberation, what does liberation mean exactly? Like for a new fight devotee.
Yeah. Oh, well, okay. Well, liberation, you know, just the word itself, it means liberation from something, right? A liberation from, uh, you know, the colonialism, right? That word. I mean, there have been so many liberation fronts, liberation movements. The word is common. There's something tying us back from where we want to be, you know, some situation. And so in Krishna consciousness, in Vedic culture and philosophy, we understand, oh, okay, I'm a pure spirit. My nature is, as Krishna says right at the beginning of the Gita, in the Jayate Mriti Bhakadacha, that we're never born, we never die, we're unborn, eternal, ever existing, primeval, we're pure consciousness, you see. So, but obviously in our present state, we're and we're Satchidananda, just like Krishna. We're eternal, full of knowledge, full of bliss. But now in our present state, material state, embodied state, we're not eternal, obviously. We're not full of all knowledge, we're full of ignorance. And we're near Ananda. And so much of our life is in misery, just trying to, you know, live from day to day. So liberation means to become free in one sense, just a preliminary sense, free from the bonds of birth, death, old age, and disease. It means free from the bonds of a material body, you see. Now, there's different conceptions of how to get to that state and what it entails. The impersonalists, the Mayavadis, say that ultimate liberation means that you're simply in a state of pure consciousness with no variety. That's where the Nirvishesha comes in. Prabhupada is liberating us from this conception of Nirvishesha, that there's no variety, there's no details, there's no senses. God has not, you know, is simply pure light consciousness with no body, no activities, no form, no name, no anything, all that we know about Krishna. And the Buddhists also have a version of that, Shunya body, that ultimately everything is nothing, that voidism is what we're looking for, nirvana, you know, the bliss of non-existence, you know. So, but Krishna kindness says, no, that's all of that is illusory. And that's the verse I quoted. The demigods are saying there are others besides your devotees who don't surrender to your lotus feet because they're impure. They're averse to serving you. They're still envious of you. And so through great effort, they try to achieve this impersonal liberation. And a few quick train of parang padam. They go to the parang padam, which means the transcendental situation, Brahma Buddha. But there's no activity there. There's no devotees, there's no prasadam, there's no Krishna, there's no name, there's no nothing. All there is the absence of birth, old age, disease, and death. Well, how can you be happy with that forever? No. So they come back down. They fall down again to material side, where they can at least engage in welfare work or something like that, because they're averse to serving you. So mukti is defined in the second chapter in terms of our philosophy. The second canto, I'm sorry. I think it's the 10th chapter. There's kind of a table of contents there. The 10 subjects of Bhagavad Gita, of Bhagavatam are mentioned and defined. And the most famous one is mukti. What is mukti? Liberation. Muktir hitbanyata rupam swarupena vyavastitihi. So mukti for the devotee, the ultimate real meaning of mukti is to give up all these other forms. In other words, to break out of the cycle of birth and death, which we've been in for who knows how many millions of years, taking all kinds of bodies in different situations, up and down. These are called anyata rupam, other forms, and to be situated in one's swarup, you see, not to transfer, even in this one body, the form changes so much, right? We're really transmigrating right in this each body. So anyata rupam, swarupena vyavastati means situated. In other words, if you read the 8th chapter of the Madhya Lila and you read about the development of one's perfected body, understanding the Siddhadeha, understanding one's relationship to Krishna, one's exact form, qualities, pastimes, dress, everything, we've lost that. That was our eternal swarup. We were serving Krishna in a specific variety of rasa, and now all that's been covered now, but it's still in there. So once we purify through the process of bhakti, as taught by Rupa Goswami, pure bhakti, without any desire for material benefit or liberation, that's the jnana, that motive has to be given up. Then we can actually achieve mukti. You achieve real mukti through bhakti. And when you've achieved it, you forget about it. Just like Bilba Mangal Thakur, he has his famous verse, Bhakti Swayam Bhakti Stvayish Stiratada Bhagavan Yadi said, Daive Nanak Pavati Divya Kishora Murti. Mukti Swayam Mukulitanjali Sevate Sman, Daive Nanak Pavati Dharma Takama Gata Yaksana Yakpatisha. So, my dear Lord, this is near the end of the Krishna Karnamrita. If one is nicely situated in pure devotion to you, Bhakti Sri Stiratada Bhagavan Yadi said, one will get the fruit of that bhakti. What is the fruit? Not mukti. It's a vision of your beautiful adolescent form. In other words, a direct darshan. And as far as mukti is concerned, she's waiting at the doorway, to serve me. And if whatever I need in terms of dharma, artha, and kama, the other of the four Vedic goals, that they're also there. We need some kama, we need some prasadam, that's all taken care of. But once if you just aspire for pure love, mukti is taken care of. But the definition is, yes, you'll be situated in your swarup and you'll be eternally serving Krishna. Again, back home, back to God. That's when mukti comes in devotional life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. Wonderfully answered the question. So, and actually, it's very good for us and auspicious for us to listen from you today, the day of appearance of Radha Kund.
Right.
Thank Radha Kund appearance day, and we are hearing from you, Prabhu. We are very blessed and we are very happy to hear from you. I have one question from another devotee. The question is, when we put in endeavor, is mercy from Krishna guaranteed sooner or later? So
when
when
we
we
do what? When we
put
do
our
what?
endeavor, like we are all our efforts, if we put all our efforts,
Oh, okay.
so is mercy from Krishna guaranteed sooner or later?
Yes, for sure. Even a little service is recognized. Everything we do, like it said, Bhagavad Gita, Neha Vikramanasho sti pratyavayo navidyate svalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. That in this effort, Krishna consciousness, there's no loss and there's no diminution. Even a little effort in this regard will protect one from the most fearful type of danger, which is losing the human form of life. So even if you just begin devotion and then you give it up, you're still going to come back as a devotee to that. You did 0.5%, so you'll come back and start with. So the mercy is flowing. The question is, how quickly do we want to progress? It's all about a question of sincerity. When we fully surrender, we can feel the mercy at every moment, and you can see it manifest in your life and others' lives. Sometimes, though, if we we go in fits and starts with our devotional life, we have a problem. We don't see it as obviously, but we should have faith that it's there. Krishna is carefully observing, and everything that we do for him is recorded. He doesn't lose track of anything. But it's up to us to be greedy. Greed is good in this sense, to be greedy for advancement in devotional service. Krishna Bhakti Rsabhadeva Kriyatam Yadikutopi Labdite. There's a verse that Ramananda Roy wrote, and he expressed to Lord Chaitanya in his conversation with him in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that the absorption of the mind in Krishna Bhakti Rasa, in the mellows of devotion to Krishna, which Srila Prabhupada took that phrase and turned it into the phrase Krishna consciousness. That's what he says, that's where he got the idea. Krishna Bhakti Rasabhavatamati Kriyatam Yadikutopi Labdhi. You should buy it in the market if you can find it and you have the price. And what's the price? Chatta Laulim Api Muruli Mekalam. The sole price is your greed for it, your absolute desire for it. The problem is that our desires are all splayed out into matter, and so we don't have that pure desire. But if you can cultivate that desire by hearing, chanting, and progressing, then that's the price for it. Krishna will respond and award us with that pure love. And then you have no question that you're getting Krishna's mercy.
Thank you, Prabhu. Again, as always, you always answer wonderfully and touching the hearts of all devotees. And actually, the devotee who asked you the question is thankful for your wonderful answer.
Good.
Very
All
good.
right. I want to know if I have enough time here. I want to share this poem about Srimati Radharani from the Govinda Lilamrita, since it's
Sure.
Radha Kund, Parents' Day.
Oh, very
This is,
nice. Please
this
go
is a
ahead.
song. It's a song by a female parrot, by the Shari. You may have heard of this, the Shari, the Shuka and the Shari, singing Kunkamakta Kanchanabja Gava Hari Gaurabha. This is in the database, those who are familiar. So I put that into English poem with basically the same beat, which is a very simple beat, chanda. So I'll just share that. It'll take a few minutes. Her gold complexion steals the pride of gold, and lotus tinged with red. Her fragrance mocks the scent of lotus bloom, with saffron powder spread. Her skill in satisfying Sri Hari is perfect and complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Her wondrous silken garments shame the splendor rubies can display. She is a blooming garden where the bee of Krishna loves to play. She worships Surya every day so she and Madhava can meet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Eclipsed by Radha's tenderness, the fame of budding blossoms dims. The moon, a lotus sandal paste, and camphor serve her cooling limbs. When Krishna burns with love's desires, her soothing touch dispels the heat. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Though youthful goddesses adored by all adore the goddess Shri, she lacks Radha's beauty, youth, and every other quality. So when it comes to lovers' sports, with Radha no one can compete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Within the rasa dancer singing and her joking are the best. She shines with countless traits divine like love and gorgeous form and dress. Among the famous gopis of Vrindavan, she's supremely sweet. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Eternal pastimes, beauty, youth, and love for Krishna make her rich. The loving gopis tremble just to see that love at highest pitch. Her meditation on Shri Krishna's form and pastimes is complete. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Perspiring, trembling hairs on end, and crying, faltering of the voice, impatience, joy, and guile. These signs of rapture make her friends rejoice. For Krishna's eyes, these many gem-like ecstasies provide a treat. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Apart from Krishna for a moment, Radha feels anxiety and restlessness and other moods, the highest kind of ecstasy. But when she meets him with some effort, all the sufferings retreat. May Radhika bestow on me the service of her lotus feet. Exalted goddesses like Lakshmi Devi hardly ever see Shri Krishna's lover Radhika, but if a humble devotee recites these verses, then Shri Radha, who enjoys with Shri Hari, will pour the nectar of her service down on him eternally. Hare Krishna. Now,
Hare,
I believe that Ananda Gauranga has my poetry file. So you check with him. You
I will
write,
check. I'll
yeah,
check.
and if so, you can share it. You'll find that in there. There's also one to Krishna, which I don't have time to chant right now. But
One
it's yeah, I put this together, and I think you'll benefit.
wonderfully composed. And when I was listening, I was thinking that I am actually merging with the wave of your like voice. It's like a wave. I am going through the waves. It was wonderful, and everyone actually enjoyed, especially today. And for everyone, just one thing I would like to share who's joined late. Later today, His Grace Dravida Das Prabhu is living history of ISKCON. So he has been with ISKCON and he is a direct disciple of Srila Prabhupada since 1973. And he has been serving as an editor for the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust for over 45 years. We are so grateful to hear from Prabhu on this auspicious day of appearance of Radha Kund. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for your wonderful time and being very kind to ISKCON Scarborough devotees. And we have devotees today from other countries like Mauritius and
Oh, good.
Canada and US. So thank you, Prabhu, for attracting all the nice people from all over the world. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Amal, before you leave, I just have one question. Can you send to me the YouTube link for this
I,
class?
I, I will send it to you. Once we edit, I'll send directly to your email.
Okay,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. We are very
God bless
blessed
you,
to have
Prabhupada. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Bol, Hare Krishna. Thanks everyone again for your valuable
Hare
time.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you, Hare Krishna. See, devotees are very blessed
Hari
today
Hari.
to have
Hari.
His Grace Dravidas Prabhu again for us and giving us a wonderful time. Thank you, Prabhu.
Jai
Thank
Ghosh
you,
Prabhupada.
Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hari
Hare,
Bol, Hari
Hare
Bol.